Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Again, thank you so much for joining us wherever you are in the world. And we've got about 700 destinations and tourism organizations registered for today. So thank you again for joining our fourth webinar in our Clarity in a Time of Crisis webinar series. My name is Chris Adams. I look after research and insights at Miles Partnership, and we've got two wonderful guests, and they can wave, and I'll introduce them more formally in a moment. Dave Lorenz from Travel Michigan, and Madeline List from Focusrite.
Hi.
And I'll come back and introduce them more formally in a moment. So Clarity in a Time of Crisis is the title of our education program in this challenging time, and we're summarizing insights and critical takeaways from data and research partners and innovative destinations across the US and around the world. And we've got some wonderful insights from both Travel Michigan and Focusrite today. Thanks again for the many old familiar colleagues and friends joining us today on this webinar. It's part of our ongoing commitment to education around COVID-19. And we're taking a look at the latest research and practical resources we'll share in this webinar. It's all available on our communication center. You can see the address right there in the top right. So we'll be sharing a recording of the webinar, the individual presenter webinars, and all the slides and other resources in a follow-up email 24 hours after this webinar today, and it will all be available in our portal. A couple of resources I want to highlight. Last week we held a very popular webinar, got a lot of wonderful feedback about the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. And leaders from Colorado, Oregon, Solomar International, and destination analysts joined us to highlight opportunities to put sustainability and other Earth Day principles at the center of our recovery from the COVID-19 crisis. So check out that webinar, the individual recordings, the slides, and other resources, all available right there. And we've done a wonderful little analysis project, and I want to give a special shout out to Monica Miller on our Brand USA team, who actually did some wonderful work on this. We looked around the world at almost 200 destinations and tourism organizations, and we've compiled a list of top COVID-19 videos from all over the planet. We've got examples from Dubai to Australia, New Zealand to Norway, and destinations across the US. We've got a top 10 list and a wider gallery. So that will be up on our site tomorrow and shared in our follow-up email. In this webinar, we're asking these three critical questions, providing insights on the current situation, opportunities for action, and what's going to be the timing of those opportunities. So to answer those questions, we're joined by a couple of experts, real leaders in our industry. So Madeline List is a senior analyst at Focusrite, and they're one of the world's leaders in travel research. We've worked with them for more than a decade, and they're one of the true leaders at the intersection of digital and tourism. And Madeline is joining us safely locked down in New York City, I hope, Madeline?
Safely, yes.
So I'll pass it over to Madeline in a moment. And Dave Lorenz with Travel Michigan is one of the US destination leaders, including currently being Vice Chair of the National Council of State Tourism Directors. And Dave, where are you and how are you faring in Michigan?
I am in West Michigan in the log home bunker over in the lower peninsula of Michigan, right on Lake Michigan. It's a beautiful sunny day in pure Michigan, and we've had a rather chilly spring so far, so it's nice to see the warmth.
Very good. I think a lot of us are looking forward to the summer. So today we'll first jump into what Madeline has to share. It's recently published research from European and US travelers, how they're thinking about domestic and international travel. And then Dave's going to provide some practical examples and insights, both from Michigan itself, but more broadly in his role with the National Council of State Tourism Directors at what other states are doing across the US. Again, thanks and recognition to our good friends, partners at Destinations International, US Travel, Southeast Tourism Society, and DMA West. They're all doing wonderful work. Destinations International just had a very impactful webinar, and so we are grateful for their support and participation. So without further ado, let me pass over to Madeline for the latest look at both how US but also international travelers are thinking about both domestic and international travel. Over to you, Madeline.
Great, thanks, Chris. I want to speak about some recent research that we did relating to people who had leisure travel that was planned between when this research was fielded at the end of March in 2020 through the end of June in 2020. My name is Madeline List. I'm a research analyst here at Focusrite. And the way this research worked is we spoke with 400 people in each of the markets that I'm going to be speaking about today, which are the US, UK, France, and Germany, all who had leisure trips coming up. This is part of a broader set of resources that we're putting out here at Focusrite and FocusWire. These include the hotel forecasts and a special series that we're releasing on that on a city-by-city basis. We have an expanded Fast Facts webinar about this research that's available on YouTube and our website, some sector related updates as well, and FocusWire has a live blog with updates on current events related to the travel industry, as well as an In Focus podcast.
And also some great resources there, Madeline, on FocusWire from the likes of Doug Lansky, who I know is doing your Destination X series on how different destinations are tackling with the crisis.
Yes, I have been relying on a lot of FocusWire updates as this goes on. So my colleagues there are doing great work, and I really recommend the content that they've been putting out. So going through the impact of COVID-19 on these travelers' plans, just a little bit of context here. I'm going to go a little quicker through some of the actions that they're planning on taking with their soonest upcoming trips. We know that this is a situation where plans can change sometimes on a day-to-day basis. What's more constant here are the attitudes that they have and what is creating boundaries to traveling right now, what their barriers are, and what's going to help bring down those barriers in the future, what signs of recovery they're going to look for. And so some context about these people and the attitude going into this research and changing their trip plans, if that was something that they needed to do. We know that since the window that we're looking at is a pretty soon upcoming set of trips between the end of March and the end of June, we have a lot of people who would have already taken the time off work or had time off work approved, people who would have put down money, people who would have made bookings. There can be a degree of frustration that comes when somebody is forced to be grounded, forced to make changes to their plans. So we wanted to ask travelers what their perspective was on their own government's travel restrictions. And what we found was overall, people were really accepting of the fact that certain restrictions needed to be made. Between 44 to 50% of travelers who we spoke to felt that the restrictions were just right given the situation. And then additional third in each market, about a third, felt that the restrictions could be even stricter, and that was something that they would be comfortable with given the severity of the COVID-19 situation. So while there were a lot of extraordinary measures that had to be taken with people making a lot of changes and often making them rapidly, the fact of the matter is that these changes that they're making, they're coming from a place of understanding and appreciation for the necessity and not a place of resentment for having to make any changes to their plans. When it comes to what they're actually doing, the most common action in the US, UK, and France was to postpone the soonest upcoming trip. After that was to cancel. In Germany, the situation was reversed, where canceling was a bit more common than postponing. And really the bright spot here, as I see it, is that people aren't willing to throw in the towel yet and pull the plug on that trip that they have coming up. They made plans and they're excited about the destination. They have this sustained level of enthusiasm for it, and they don't want to cancel the whole thing right away. As the situation progresses, since we don't know how long people may have before they can travel again, it may take additional engagements with them and additional marketing and messaging in order for them to really keep that level of excitement up. But what we're seeing from them so far is that they don't want to take big measures to cancel their trips if they were already excited about the destination and where they were going next. If they are postponing, most people are pretty optimistic about when they think they're going to be able to travel again. The majority of travelers felt that a 1 to 6 month push off from the original departure date would be appropriate. In France, they're especially optimistic, where about 3 out of 4 people who had to postpone a trip felt like they could do it within that 1 to 6 month window. And if they did cancel, we wanted to dig deeper into that and find out what they're doing with that time that was designated for travel. And really what we uncovered here is that people who were canceling completely were people who were affected pretty profoundly by the COVID-19 situation and the restrictions that came with that. We found that only 16% or fewer, depending on the market, were able to go back to their original regular routines. And the vast majority had to return to routines that were affected by COVID. So all in all, these were people whose lives outside of travel were affected quite strongly if they did have to cancel. And when it came to the prospect of potentially doing a staycation, there isn't a lot of enthusiasm for this building right now. In the US, the people who canceled were somewhat more engaged with this idea, where 22% of people who canceled wanted to do a staycation, but the numbers went down from there. There are really 2 sides to this part of the data. One of those sides is that certain restrictions would have already been in place by the time that they would have the option of doing a staycation. Certain local attractions or dining options would have been closed that acted as a natural prohibitor for them going forward with a staycation. But the other side of this, which is a theme that we're going to see at various places throughout this research, is that these people who have leisure trips coming up are really focused on maximizing their time. And if they have time that's off work and time that was originally intended to travel, they want to use it for travel. They want to be using it to be able to enjoy their time as much as they hope to. And that's a level of zeal and excitement that hopefully we can capitalize on as people start to increase their openness to traveling again once circumstances allow. In terms of the actual reasons why they were considering actually making changes to their plans, this really fell into 3 main buckets. So the first big theme was the risk of catching or spreading COVID. This could be at the destination or in transit. And that risk of getting ill themselves was something that was a more primary concern than spreading COVID. People are really focusing on their own health first, and spreading is something that's a concern and it's important, but it took a backseat in comparison to the actual risk of becoming ill. Another major theme were restricted mobility, with people who are taking time to travel to somewhere new and are excited about the destination. They felt really inhibited by that prospect that they could go all the way somewhere new and find themselves cooped up in a quarantine, or another risk of potentially being stranded due to border closures or because of changing transit schedules and not being able to return home as scheduled. In Germany, which had very expansive testing, a very supportive healthcare system, people were actually a bit more scared of quarantine than they were afraid of getting sick. And then the last bucket here is the ability to fully enjoy a destination. Once people are going somewhere new, they really want to absorb a place for all that it has to offer. And so if the lodging options are restricted because of closures, if dining options are restricted, or to a lesser extent, if attractions and activities aren't available in the way that they would be in normal times and normal circumstances, this was a turnoff and something that people considered strongly when it came to making them make changes to their upcoming trips. Now, in terms of traveling internationally, travelers don't necessarily think the act of crossing borders or going abroad is something that's going to make them sick. I want to caveat that this isn't a commentary on a specific region or a specific country, because this is something that can vary by destination. But the idea of going abroad isn't something that makes travelers think they're more likely to catch COVID in a foreign place than they would be at home. When we look at how domestic and international travelers considered getting sick at a destination as a factor that made them change their trips, the statistics are really similar here. In France, they're a little more apprehensive that international travel could pose a greater risk of contracting COVID, but overall, people really feel like if there's a risk domestically, there's a risk internationally, and crossing the border isn't going to make a difference in terms of that increased risk of becoming ill. But the factor that is really playing a strong part here with making them apprehensive about traveling would be the air travel component, if that was present. Travelers associate air travel with a higher risk of getting infected. This is particularly amplified in the US, where 70% of people who have air travel with their soonest upcoming leisure trip said that they were concerned enough about becoming ill in transit that this was something that made them make changes to their plans. So it could also mean that while air is something that we need to continue to watch, this could be a sector that has some lagging recovery in terms of the way people perceive its safety or perceive their risk of becoming ill here. And we can have people in markets where they're able to access a destination through driving or through another non-air form of transit, opening up to that idea of going somewhere new before we have people who would need to travel to a specific destination by air feeling like they have an increased comfort level. And more on what's going to make people feel that they can feel confident and open and comfortable traveling again. I want to start off by talking about something that's frankly not going to do a very good job with increasing their openness, and that's COVID-related bargains. We asked people who have traveled coming up, what are the chances that within that window between the end of March and the end of June, they might take advantage of a COVID-related deal that's presented to them. And most people felt like this wasn't a hot prospect for them. We have some more young travelers than travelers who are 35 and above who would feel comfortable with taking advantage of a deal or a bargain, but overall, good prices aren't something that's going to move the needle for most people here. But what is going to make people have a different attitude about what would make them feel comfortable traveling again is a reduction of the barriers that we spoke about before that had originally made them change their plans. So there was a fear about health risk and about a risk of getting infected. They want to see a drop of infection rates. And this was the #1 thing that travelers were looking for in the US and France and Germany. And it also means that while they're going to be looking at actual statistics and risks in terms of fear of getting sick at a destination, if there are other things that would help boost their perceptions of safety within a destination that can be messaged to them, this is something that can be really important. If there are additional social distancing measures that are being taken in lodging options or at tourist sites or at attractions and activities, that's something that can matter. And then additional stricter sanitation measures can be something that's really important to them as well. Lowered restrictions is something that's important. In the UK, the #1 thing that these travelers were looking for to feel comfortable traveling again was an official government advisory that this is something that's okay. And in other markets, they often cited this as something that they were looking for as well. And then in addition with the lowered restrictions, they want to see that quarantine policies are relaxing, and they're also looking for the border restrictions and any closures that are happening there to be opened up before there's more comfort with traveling again there. And then the last is that people really want to experience the full zeitgeist of a place. They want to take in whatever it has to offer. And so that means that first and foremost, they would be looking for lodging options and dining options to open up again. They want to know that those are things that are available to them if they're going to trek out somewhere new, that it's something they can take in, and then to a lesser extent, attractions and activities are something that they're going to be watching to really feel like they can experience the full flavor of a place with everything that they were looking forward to. So overall, one of the things that's so important to call out here is that some of this is going to be a waiting game. There's going to be some need to watch those public health statistics and the infection rates to see when those will start dropping. It's going to be important for making people feel comfortable traveling again. And those government policies are also a big external factor that is going to come into play here. But then there are other strategic tools that we can keep in account when it comes to our strategic arsenal in order to really contact people and target them at a time when they could feel comfortable traveling again and kind of wake them back up and stoke that desire to travel again. So one of the things to keep in account is, again, this isn't a commentary on a specific destination or specific country, but international and domestic travel markets have similar challenges when it comes to making people feel comfortable with any transmission risks. This could be especially important to take into account with European markets where so many people are living in places where they have easy access to international markets that they can reach through car or rail or other similar modes of transportation. But here, air travel is perceived as particularly risky. It's something where there could be psychological barriers potentially. There are the factors like recycled airflow that could be on people's minds. There are some very practical restrictions with not necessarily being able to maintain the levels of social distancing people might want to have in transportation, or not feeling like they have the flexibility to move freely in the aircraft if something does make them feel uncomfortable. So this is something that might be a lagger in terms of how long it takes to recover, which means that drive markets or markets where people can access a place with non-air forms of transportation can be a low-hanging fruit in those early phases of recovery as those comfort levels are finally starting to wake up and increase once again.
Yeah, and I think that point about air travel is particularly pertinent. There was some coverage today in the US about airlines and social distancing, etc. And so sectors of our tourism economy have particular challenges in terms of emphasizing safety, and as a whole, even when we're on a stronger recovery path, communicating clear information around health is going to be critical, because this is a health-driven emergency. And to that point, and we've seen a variety of other research from other partners as well, Madeline, highlight this final point here, that marketing communications around deals or offers or incentives to travel are really not going to be effective. In fact, might be a negative if it's not in close concert with that official advice on when and how it's appropriate to travel.
Right. Personal safety is so important, and while bargains can be something that would often matter to people, it's just not overriding that desire to feel like they're going to be safe and look after their own health.
Yes, that's right. Madeline, quick question, and before we come back to questions at the end, but Morika is asking, what specific changes do you think are going to happen to national or international travel? For example, private tours or small group tours, or people traveling in families or individuals. Are they going to become, for example, far more popular than group travel?
Group travel is something that has a sense of, depending on the specific type, there might be a feeling of loss of control of who else can be in those groups. It's very likely that people might want to travel in groups that they would be able to control. So whether that's one other partner or a family, as people very often do right now, that could be something that we see more often. It's a little hard to tell right now. We're really feeling this out piece by piece, but we do see that when people have those feelings that they might not be able to control their specific health or safety in a situation, they pull back and they act with a lot more caution.
Very good. Okay, well, we'll come back again to some additional questions at the end, but I want to transition over to Dave Lorenz. So Dave's going to join us. Madeline's just going to step back for a few moments. And Dave, good to see you, mate. Why don't we kick it off by just perhaps giving us a sense of what does a typical day look like for Dave Lorenz and Travel Michigan at the moment?
Well, that's a strange thing these days, because I'm doing anything but typical now. Typically, I would be driving 102.4 miles to the office. I live on Lake Michigan, and Lansing is in the middle of the Lower Peninsula. These days, like everybody else, I'm working from the house, and I'm actually trying to do something that I would normally do in a different way. You know, we are usually thinking of ourselves as needing to inspire the travelers and to make them aware of our destinations and such. These days, I'm spending a lot of time trying to inspire our industry and trying to give them some hope. Everybody's scared. People don't know what's happening. So you see these crazy pictures here, my ego wall of information. And you know, so I usually start out the day with posting a picture with some kind of a message, just reminding the industry, of which I have a lot of followers, that we're going to get through this, and it's different for everybody, but we will. It'll be a challenge. It's going to be harder before it's easier, but eventually we'll look back at this time as that time when the world went crazy and we figured our way out.
Yeah, I think wise words, Dave. So just in that context, do you want to give the audience a sort of 60-second update on what's the situation in Michigan? What's the situation with you know, the tourism industry there?
Yeah, we've been certainly hit hard with COVID-19, especially in Southeast Michigan. You know, the Detroit area is heavily African-American population, and the African-American population has been hit horribly. So that's hurt us very badly. And especially in that community. The good news is all the numbers are coming down. So the stay home orders have been working. All the data shows that we're getting close to being able to get back out there and experiencing life as we all would like to. You know, we, like other states, have had the proponents and those who kind of like how the government is handling things, and those who don't. And so we've certainly seen some protests and such. But I think more so, there's been great support of the administration and how they've handled things so far. And frankly, if you look at the numbers, you can see we're making some great strides, and we'll get there soon. And I think within just a few short weeks, people will be starting to travel. Golf courses are now opening up, but you can get in your boat now. These things weren't allowed until just about a week ago.
So how has the crisis directly impacted Travel Michigan and the wider Department of Economic Development in terms of funding, support, staffing, and resources to tackle these challenges?
Well, you know, I used to kind of wonder if Travel Michigan being a part of the Michigan Economic Development Corporation really made sense. And these last few years, I've really changed my opinion about that a lot, because I used to look at Travel Michigan as being almost exclusively a marketing organization. But in reality, we started to shift years ago into a true destination management organization, you know, that kind of a DMO. And the role of the DMO has shifted so much, even at the statewide level. So we've been working on a lot of things like destination management and helping the industry on community development and things like this. Being a part of the MEDC, we have experts in these fields. And it's never been more helpful than right now, because we're able to connect our industry to these services that have become so very needed at this time. So things are going well, and it's certainly helped us, I think, start to stabilize, certainly faster than we would have if we'd have been kind of out there on our own.
So do you want to share what's one or two things you're working on immediately that are having the most impact in terms of responding to this crisis?
Yeah, certainly. You know, I got to first, of course, Michigan is in the Great Lakes area, the upper Midwest, and we have a 4-season environment here, and we love it. Those of us who live here, most of us do. Not a lot of winter fans, I suppose, compared to the warm weather months. But at this time of the year, this is the time where there's already pent up demand. We have so-called cabin fever, and people just can't wait to get out. So we would typically at this time, if we had budget, and we need to talk about that real quickly, we'd be, you know, presenting the story of all these great experiences and places you can go all throughout the state. Now we are in a current situation where we aren't budgeted. We had a strange, we were vetoed out of our budget at the beginning of the year, October 1. We were just about to get budgeted out of an agreement between the legislature and the governor's office when all this hit. So we are operating without funding. a little bit difficult right now, especially now when there's a great need for us to be able to transition from where we are today eventually to the point where we're going to need to encourage people to travel. So I can kind of walk you through some of our trip planning options that we're offering people right now. One of the things that we're trying to do is, like so many other states, we're trying to get people to dream about their travel experiences, to plan their future travel experiences. We're making it very obvious that now is the time to stay home, to make sure other people are safe. And that's been part of our messaging that, you know, you might feel comfortable for yourself, but think about other people. Try to think about other people. That's been a big part of our kind of changing message. So as part of that, we've worked with the industry and we've come up with a whole bunch of virtual experiences where people can see live cameras and in classroom projects and go into world-class museums like the Henry Ford and so many others. So that has helped us transition eventually to where we're going to need to go when the time is right, and that will be this whole thing about, okay, you've been stuck at home, you've been planning, and soon it will be the time to get out there. So we're trying to encourage people to book right now. We're to book in advance. We're working with the media, and we have used the virtual experience platform as a reason to get a lot of media time. Frankly, it's gotten us a lot of free media time, and we need that, especially since we haven't had advertising dollars to work with. We'll continue to transition that. You can go to the next slide if you don't mind, please. As we move forward, it's going to be more important for us to work on this whole thing about unity. I mentioned earlier that it's important for all of us to try to inspire people, and my little ways that I try to do that every day with the travel industry. But with this disharmony and with people just simply not trusting government today more than ever, I think it's really important that we try to come together and we communicate the value of coming together and the value of unity, and how now, if we can't be united now as one state, working for others, working for our neighbors and having care for other people, when can we? So we've developed a pretty organic campaign actually that we call Two Peninsulas, One Pure Michigan. And it's, of course, something that could only be done in the state because of our unique, upper and lower peninsula. We are literally and figuratively joined by the Mackinac Bridge. It's a 5-mile long bridge. It was the longest suspension bridge in the world for nearly 60 years. And it's an awesome thing. You can see these two billboard examples here. And what we're trying to tell our own residents is right now, do your part. Be one people, be patriotic, do your part by being one pure Michigan, by staying home and planning, and then eventually you'll be able to get out there. We are two peninsulas. We know that everybody's different, but at the end of the day, we're all the same. So let's try to think of others. And so we put together a campaign. We've worked with the media. They know we don't have any budget. They've given us awesome free space, billboards, 55 billboards around the state. Digital billboards. We have TV stations that are providing us free space and time. And in fact, I think we have a TV ad that we produced that we can show you that will kind of show you how we're trying to initially get across the message that now's the time to stay home, and let's value that time. Let's appreciate that time as much as we can, even in this difficult time, because soon we'll have that opportunity to get out there, to do what we're truly missing more than anything, and that is these connections that the travel industry provides us. So we can play that ad. We'll try to do that.
Do you have a phone?
Go fish.
Gone fishing. It's a sign that means we've locked up and headed off to do something we love. Gone sailing. Gone biking. Gone golfing. Gone climbing. Gone wandering. Pure Michigan.
And your trip begins at michigan.org. And what we're really trying to do here is kind of the first stage of this communication, and that is, hey, now's our time to stay home. But we're trying to have a little fun with it too, to be both inspirational and to try to lighten up the mood. It's a difficult time for people. So we've done crazy things where we're saying, like in this case, greetings from picturesque Patio, Michigan. That's my front porch there. Greetings from Kitchen, Michigan, and such. We put together this 2 Peninsula, 1 Pure Michigan campaign that includes digital postcard templates that people can drop in, so they can drop in their own pictures and email them to friends. We have, these templates where you can, greetings from your couch, greetings from your living room, these types of things, which are fun. We have Instagram stickers. We put together a bunch of things like this that I think are a lot of fun. And we're actually trying to extend this whole message next week into National Travel and Tourism Week by putting together I'll call it it's kind of a concert series, but I think it's more than that. It's more of a variety show. You see all these benefit concerts that have been running and been fantastic. What we're doing is we're having performers from throughout the state perform from their living rooms. We have special guests like celebrities from the Detroit Tigers, the Detroit Lions, Mitch Albom, the great author from Detroit, and a bunch of other folks that are be joining us. And then we have on each of these shows each night, we'll have like a special demonstration that could only really come from Michigan, like maybe a pretzel making thing from Frankenmuth, or making a pasty in the Upper Peninsula food demo. And so it's going to be a lot of fun conversation, and it will be a fundraiser for our displaced hospitality workers. It's a strange time, and I think that one of the things that we always need to do is be nimble and fill the gaps that are needed. We may see ourselves as destination marketers or management people, but in reality, we're just people who need to help other people too. So we put this together with our partners at MLive, and we have some really great MCs. It's going to be a really cool thing. So moving forward, we will be able to take all of this 2 Peninsula, 1 Pure Michigan message, and at the right time, we will then be saying, okay, we've told you why it was so important to stay home. Now it's important for you to stay in your state, to stay home while you travel. So in the future, we know, as the data Madeline was showing us, that people are going to want to find open spaces and fresh air and clean water and small towns and in nature more than maybe city experiences. So we will primarily target in-state audience in the region. And I know that's what most of our states in our region, at least, are doing, from talking to my colleagues. Last year, we actually introduced a program we called Meanwhile in Michigan. And the idea behind this was we wanted to get people to new places, small towns that they had never known before, that offer really beautiful experiences. But people didn't know about them because we didn't promote them that much. This was our effort to deal with over-tourism. Now we have a totally different challenge, but we can execute the same program here, where we're not worried about over-tourism anymore. But we are interested in getting people to go to places where they can feel comfortable, where there can be socially distancing, and they can still enjoy these beautiful, natural environments with millions of acres of forest and thousands of lakes and things like that. So I see us transitioning initially into this approach, and then eventually, let's hope we can get some budget and we can start marketing to a greater audience regionally and otherwise, starting in-state, regional, national, into Ontario, and then into the rest of the world. It's going to take some while. It'll take a while, but we'll get it done.
So that's looking out a little bit further, obviously, 2 or 3 months. Is there any other sort of priorities you've got on that horizon over the next few months, Dave, in terms of what you'll be focusing on?
Yeah, well, most of our other focus is not necessarily in the marketing area. It's really more in the resource delivery, being that connection between, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, trying to help the industry understand better on what they can learn with resources that are available, services and products, because we all know this huge challenge we deal with is so complicated. Just dealing with unemployment issues for your staff. I've had to lay off 3 people for a couple of weeks. I know that anxiety being an employer that has to do that. So any services that we can help connect people with, we'll continue to relay that back and forth. I know in our state, I think it's the same as everywhere else. The industry really wants to know, what are the rules? You know, what are people going to be allowed to do, and what is the industry going to be allowed to do? When can they do this? And these are all being developed. The very strange thing about this phenomenon is that, you know, we all have our crisis plans. And for our office, I've always thought of a crisis plan as being all about communication. You know, we're not we don't create the policies or the services out there. But I've never thought of us as being a connector to the degree that I felt it's important for us to play. So you asked earlier what my day is like. I spend a lot of time just playing connecting people. And of course, that's our role in a different way most of the time.
So you're also Vice Chair of the National Council of State Tourism Directors. So can you just give us a quick sort of overview of what you've seen other states doing? And are there any, you know, one or two sort of standouts or examples amongst those states of, you know, where they're really showing an innovative approach to dealing with this crisis?
Yeah, I enjoyed seeing Kathy Ritter from Colorado last week, our chair. She's always innovative and interesting and has great insights. And, you know, the thing is, the best thing about being a travel director, honestly, besides all the great things you get to see and do, is that you get to work with this very small group around the country. Most collaborative group I've ever seen. We share insights. We have a meeting tomorrow, open forum, virtual meeting, where we're going to be talking about all these issues and sharing best practices from each state. I mean, I always look at kind of my heroes in the industry, people like Todd Davidson over in Oregon. He's always got great ideas, and he actually came out early with a nice pre-developed campaign and offered it for the rest of the states. Well, most of the states were already putting their own program together, so I don't know how many used it, but just the thought that somebody would offer up a program is really nice. We share information as well. So Dwayne in South Carolina had shared some insights on how welcome centers were being managed and how they were going to be slowly opened up in his state. You know, it's this type of collaboration that will get us moving forward at the state level. And I'm hoping that, even though I think this is somewhat unusual at the local convention visitor bureau, smaller DMOs, I'm hoping that DMOs around the country, either through DI or otherwise, find ways to collaborate in this way. It's very beneficial. And you never know, what might seem to be not a very good idea for another state could be a really great idea for your state.
So what final sort of a piece of advice have you got, Dave, for you know, destination marketing organization executives, managers, other stakeholders in the industry? You know, what do you think is going to be most important to get through this crisis?
Well, I think, you know, like the rest of life, attitude has a lot to do with it. And you know, people are scared, but it's our job to try to help people fight through that. We inspire people to travel. We need to inspire our own industry to hang tough, to hang together, to not give up, because it is a really scary time for people. That's, I think, one of our most important roles. And we need to be truthful, as with any brand communication. You need to be truthful, but we also need to do all we can to inspire a sense of hope that we have a lot of smart people in this industry, and we're going to help this country come through this. We're going to be the leaders, frankly. You know, this industry is always the first to get hit with these types of challenges. We also have the opportunity to be the first to come out of it. If we stay positive, we look for innovative ways to get things done. We don't just stick our heads in the sand and refuse to take chances, because I think that's going to be really necessary as well at the right time, to take some chances with some communication techniques. So if I was to say one word, it would be inspiration.
Very good. So thank you so much, Dave, for sharing those insights. We greatly appreciate it. I'll come back to a couple of questions just in a moment. We just wanted to highlight some other resources we can leave with you. So again, our education portal has got all the past webinars and upcoming webinars. And in fact, recordings. We've also got a summary of webinars from other industry partners, including those recordings. We've summarized data from our 9, I think it is now, research and data partners. We've got a whole range of practical resources and third-party expert health and government sources of information. So please check that out. With Longwoods International and Amir, Elon's going to be joining us next week, looking back at 8 weeks of data from this weekly travel sentiment survey. You can check out the full slide deck. You can look at a 2-page summary that we create each week with a short analysis of what it all means. And Amir and I summarize it all in a quick 4 or 5 minute webinar. So check all those out at our website. And we've got a couple of upcoming webinars. Well, in fact, we're continuing to do it weekly, probably all the way through May. Next week, Laura Alto, who's Chief Executive of Helsinki Marketing, is going to be joining us. And the Scandinavians have really been leaders and innovators in destination marketing for many years. And so we're going to be hearing both in terms of Finland, but the wider Scandinavian region about how they're responding to COVID-19. I mentioned Amir's joining us from Longwoods International, and then we've got a real treat on May the 12th. We've pulled together a group of grizzled, experienced market and industry veterans. So we've got Chris Thompson from Brand USA, of course, formerly with Visit Florida, DT Minnick, a real industry veteran in terms of with CVBs in Florida, and our own Ursula Bowles. And they're going to be looking back at 9/11 and the great financial crisis and what are the critical insights and lessons we can learn about the recovery from there that we need to apply today. So all of those resources and information are available both on our own website and, of course, the websites of our partners today, Focusrite and Michigan. So let's just finish with a couple of quick questions. Dave, we've got Melissa's got a couple of questions sent in. First of all, when do you think you're going to get budget approval for your budget? And secondly, how many states, other states, are in the same boat in terms of waiting on budget approval?
Yeah, there are a handful of states that either for a while haven't had a general fund budget or some other type of budget. I don't remember exactly how many, but in our case, I think because we were about ready to get $15 million just before this thing hit, and because the administration and the legislature are supportive of our efforts, they understand the value of Pure Michigan and of travel marketing. And because they know that this will be really necessary at the right time, I think we'll be able to get some budget. It won't be from our normal sources, won't be from the general fund because everything's been expended. And it's just because of the need that the state needs more money to pay for all this COVID response that I think we might get some money from our MEDC. We'll see. And if we do, we'll be prepared to use it wisely and effectively. Probably
Stephen's asked
in the summer.
Oh, very important, yeah. So Stephen's asking, Dave, another question for you. The One Pure Michigan idea, was that specifically the result of the COVID-19 crisis, or were you already sort of gestating and developing that idea?
Well, in ways I've often thought about how fractured our country has become, mostly politically. And, we have become so negative and so divisive, and you can't even debate a political subject anymore without, making your best friends mad. And so I've thought along this line for a long time. And quite often crossing that beautiful bridge, I literally think, look at this bridge, this has brought us together. And, the comparisons of connections. So it's been kind of in the back of my mind for a long time, but it really came about for this.
Very good. So Madeline, a question for you from Chad. Any sense of which international markets could be European, or it could be North American, or beyond that internationally, do you think is going to come back first in terms of international travel?
The markets that are close to home really matter a lot here. So if it's within a driving distance, that really matters. In the US, most of the people we were speaking to were doing domestic trips for their soonest upcoming trips. That doesn't mean that there's necessarily a lack of openness to going somewhere that is abroad if they have that option to do it without air, because the American travelers do have those reservations. But the prospects for places like Canada or Mexico, I would say, are still open. And then I think that in Europe, a lot of people are going to be looking to those neighboring countries that they can drive to, that they can take a train to. These are already things that they would feel a sense of comfort with. There's a feeling that there might be more control over those modes of transportation and better safety. So I believe that people would start out with the places that feel a little geographically closer to home, and then would expand outward from there as recovery continues to go on.
Thank you. Let's bounce back to you, Dave. Quite a number of questions coming in. So Chad wants to know more about the fundraising initiative that's assisting the unemployed. And, you know, he was noting it's, you know, incredibly collaborative and innovative. Any tips on how that came together that could help others thinking about ways to support their own, you know, travel industry staff?
Well, it's good to know people, and you know that really points out the importance of relationships. And you know, we just are very lucky that we know a lot of media people. We know a lot of people who do these types of things. So we were very lucky that we have this kind of collaborative mindset here. We've been promoting the value of collaboration in our industry for years. We actually give out a Pure Michigan Collaboration Award every year at our conference. We see it as one of the most important awards we can give because of just this thing. You know, when people think about others and not just themselves, the possibilities of others' benefit and of mutual benefit, you never know what you can do. And so because of that, we literally just brought a bunch of people together and say, hey, got this crazy idea, what do you think? And you also need to allow yourself not to be stuck on your idea. When we first started thinking about this, I thought, well, let's have a show, you know, like everybody else, let's do a concert. Well, this ended up being 5 nights of 1-hour performances that are truly a variety of show. I mean, we're gonna have like a Don Pardo intro from a live radio announcer every night, I believe. You know, it's crazy what can happen if you open your mind up to the possibilities, and if you don't just, you know, stick to your thought and your idea. I always say my best ideas came from other people, because it's true.
So Dave, just remind us, that's at facebook.com/mlive, and it's is it this upcoming week?
Yeah, this coming
what time?
Monday through Friday, 7 until 8 p.m. And it really will be a lot of fun. There'll be some celebrities that you know that will be there. And people are always surprised how many celebrities are from Michigan. There's something about the Detroit area, just like so many celebrities. But be a lot of really good music. It'll be very diverse because our state is a very diverse state. We wanted to represent that both regionally and performance-wise and participant-wise. And we have a very popular TV host, and we have a popular, I guess, newspaper media host as well. So it's going to be a really cool thing. Next Monday through Friday, 7 till 8 on Facebook Live.
So tune in and borrow some good ideas. Meredith's got a very important question, I think, and either of you could chime in on this. Any recommendations as a resource guide for industry attractions, for example, or hotels as they reopen around issues of cleaning, sanitation, etc.? Dave, have you got anything that comes to mind?
You know, I would start out with, you know, the big hotel chains, you know, the Marriotts and such. They've done such a great job. I've been looking at some of their plans. I was just looking at the Wynn plan, by the way, in Vegas today. Amazing what they put together that I think probably all the casino operators in the world will probably want to follow. So I usually, because that's the thing, we're not experts in that at all. So I'm always trying to, find that as well and then share that information with the industry.
Yeah, and I'd also point, Meredith, Singapore actually probably has been a world leader in that. They moved 3-4 weeks ago actually to create a national standard in Singapore for hygiene and cleaning. So that sort of issue I think is going to be critical, along with reassuring people subject, of course, to that health advice. And then just perhaps we'll just pick up one or two final questions. Deanne is asking Madeline about Focusrite research that might show, are people going to, which types of destinations are people going to trust first? For example, big cities, open spaces, etc.
So what the data is pointing to right now is that helping people maintain that sense of health and social distance is something that could be something people have increased comfort to before they're comfortable going back into those crowds, flooding back into Times Square. So I think that more small town or rural destinations or national or state parks would definitely be important places that people would have their eyes on first. Cities are definitely something that people can start to feel more comfortable with as more case rates start going down, as they start feeling like places within the city are taking a lot of sanitation or social distance measures to make sure that safety is more institutionalized there. But there's an inherent feeling of comfort and safety with places that just have more open spaces.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right, and that's been reinforced by a variety of research we've seen, but it's also obviously going to be dealing with some of these issues of cleanliness, hygiene, etc., and the communication that goes alongside that. And just one final question. Marika is asking, the whole sort of getting the right balance coming out of this crisis. So we had some over-tourism problems in some destinations. Well, obviously we've got a huge under-tourism problem right now as we come out of the crisis. Any final insights on getting the balance right? And I would highlight the Earth Day webinar that we ran last week, and we highlighted that. It's all available on our website. Had some great insights around exactly this challenge. Dave, do you want to finish up on that question?
Yeah, well, it's always this whole thing about balance, especially with communications, is I mentioned earlier. I mean, I like to try to find the funny things in life. It's just kind of within my personality, but that can be a real danger as well, because some people just aren't ready to go there yet with anything. And so you're always trying to make sure that you're balancing the situation, the seriousness of the situation with maybe trying to lighten the mood and provide some balance of hope as well. So in that regard, I think that you need to have a certain sense for what's right for your community, because I think every community is a little bit different in that regard.
Yeah, and I think a critical element is changing things in terms of your plan, your destination development plan, and how you're resourced, how you're rewarded, what you need to report on, focusing around some of the broader destination management issues rather than some of the metrics that traditionally destination marketing organizations have been focused on. Again, I'd highlight that Earth Day webinar that we ran. And with that, why don't we wrap it up? Again, thank you so much to Dave Lorenz and to Madeline List from Travel Michigan and Focusrite for joining us today. And thank you to all of you for joining us. All of these resources will be available on our website, and we'll look forward to connecting with you next week and in the coming weeks. Stay safe, stay well, and goodbye.